The alarm rang before sunrise, but she was already awake. She had barely slept that night. Her mind kept replaying the same thought again and again. Today could change everything. She sat up slowly on the edge of her bed, holding her phone tightly as if it could give her courage. The small room was quiet except for the sound of distant traffic and the soft breathing of her younger brother sleeping on the floor mattress. The walls were plain, the paint slightly faded, but the room felt warm because it held all her dreams. Today was not an ordinary day. Today was her interview. For weeks, she had prepared for it. She practiced answers in front of a cracked mirror. She watched free videos online to learn how to speak confidently. She borrowed a simple formal outfit from her cousin because she could not afford a new one. Every step she took toward this day felt heavy, but full of hope. Her mother was already awake in the kitchen, quietly making tea. "You woke up early," her mother said gently. "I couldn't sleep," she replied with a small smile. "I keep thinking about the interview." Her mother looked at her with tired but proud eyes. "You will do well. You always do." She nodded, but inside she felt scared. This job was not just a job. It was a chance to help her family, to pay school fees for her brother, to ease her mother's worries, to finally breathe without fear tomorrow. She washed her face, tied her hair neatly, and wore the borrowed outfit. It didn't fit perfectly, but she tried to stand straight anyway. Before leaving, she looked at herself in the mirror. "You can do this," she whispered. Outside, the morning air was cold and fresh. The streets were slowly waking up. Shopkeepers were opening shutters. Buses were honking, and people were rushing to work. She walked toward the bus stop with careful steps, holding her documents close to her chest as if they were fragile. Her heart beat fast. She checked the time again. If everything went smoothly, she would reach the office just in time. She boarded a crowded bus and found a small space near the door. As the bus moved forward, she stared out of the window, lost in her thoughts. She imagined herself walking into the office, shaking hands confidently, answering questions clearly, and leaving with a smile. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to imagine a better life. The bus stopped near a busy intersection. She got down and started walking toward the main road that led to the office building. The area was crowded with people, cars, motorcycles, and street vendors. Everyone seemed busy with their own lives. She walked faster. Suddenly, she heard a soft sound behind her. At first, she thought it was just traffic noise. But then she heard it again. It sounded like crying. She stopped. For a moment, she hesitated. People were walking past her. No one else seemed to notice anything unusual. She turned around slowly. Near the edge of the footpath, close to the busy road, she saw a small girl standing alone. The girl looked no older than 6 or 7. Her clothes were neat, but her face was pale. Her eyes were filled with tears. She was holding a small backpack tightly, as if it was the only thing she trusted. The girl looked lost. Cars rushed past her, horns blared, and people brushed by without stopping. Her heart tightened. She looked at her watch again. She was already running slightly late. If I stop, I might miss the interview, she thought. She took a step forward, trying to ignore the scene, but something pulled her back. She looked at the girl again. The girl's eyes met hers. For a moment, everything else seemed to disappear. The girl tried to speak, but her voice was too weak. She looked around as if searching for someone who wasn't there. Her feet stopped moving. She felt a strange feeling in her chest, a mix of fear, concern, and responsibility. What if something happens to her? She thought. She looked at the road. The traffic was heavy. One wrong step, and the girl could get hurt. Her phone vibrated in her hand. It was a reminder notification. Interview in 45 minutes. Her heart raced. She felt torn between two worlds. One was her dream, her future, her family's hopes. The other was a small lost child standing alone in the chaos of the city. She closed her eyes for a second. Someone else will help her, her mind whispered. But her heart did not agree. She turned around and walked toward the girl. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. The girl looked at her with wide eyes and shook her head. "Where is your family?" she asked gently. The girl tried to speak, but her words came out broken. She seemed scared and confused. She knelt down to the girl's level. "Don't worry," she said in a calm voice, even though her own heart was shaking. "I'm here." The girl started crying harder. People passed by them. Some glanced briefly, but no one stopped. She felt anger and sadness at the same time. How can everyone just walk away? She thought. She took the girl's hand carefully. "Do you know you're home?" she asked. The girl shook her head again. Her fingers tightened around the girl's hand. She looked at her watch again. Time was slipping away. She knew that if she stayed, she would definitely miss the interview. She imagined her mother's face if she lost this chance. She imagined the months of struggle ahead. She imagined the disappointment. Her throat felt dry. For a few seconds, she just stood there, unable to move. The girl looked up at her, her eyes full of fear and hope. In that moment, she realized something. If she walked away now, she might never forgive herself. She took a deep breath. "Come with me," she said softly. She guided the girl away from the busy road and toward a quieter corner. "Don't be scared," she said. "We will find your family." The girl nodded slightly, though she still looked frightened. She pulled out her phone and tried calling the police helpline. The line was busy. She tried again. No answer. She looked around and asked a nearby shopkeeper if he had seen the girl before. He shook his head. "I just saw her standing there," he said. "Maybe she got separated from her parents." She felt a heavy weight on her shoulders. She checked the time again. Now she was definitely late. Her hands started to shake. She wanted to cry, but she controlled herself. She sat down on the footpath with the girl. "Tell me your name," she said softly. The girl whispered something, but it was hard to hear. "Do you know your father's phone number?" she asked. The girl shook her head. She felt helpless. She tried talking people around, but most were in a hurry. Some looked at her with suspicion, others with indifference. Minutes passed. Her phone buzzed again. Another reminder. Her interview time had almost arrived. She looked toward the distant office building. She could almost see it from where she sat. Her dream was just a few streets away. Her heart felt like it was being pulled apart. She imagined walking into that building, apologizing for being late, trying to explain, but deep down, she knew it would not work. Companies did not wait for late candidates. She looked at the girl again. The girl had stopped crying but looked exhausted. She was clinging to her hand like she was the only safe thing in the world. In that moment, she made a decision. It was not easy. It was not logical, but it felt right. She stood up slowly. "We're going to the police station," she said. The girl looked at her, unsure but trusting. She held her hand firmly and started walking. With every step, she felt her dreams slipping away. But with every step, she also felt her heart becoming stronger. The city continued its usual noise around them. People rushed, cars honked. Life moved on. But for her, everything had changed. She did not know who the girl was. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know how she would face her family after missing the interview. All she knew was that she could not leave this child alone. As they walked toward the police station, her phone screen slowly went dark. The interview time had passed. She did not look at it again. Instead, she looked at the girl walking beside her, and in her heart, a quiet thought appeared, one she could not explain. Maybe this moment is more important than any interview. She did not know that this single decision, made on an ordinary morning, was about to change her life in ways she could never imagine. And the girl holding her hand was not just a lost child. She was the beginning of a story much bigger than both of them. The days after that morning felt heavy. She kept replaying every moment in her mind, wondering if she had done the right thing. The lost girl was safe, she hoped, but the interview she had worked so hard for was gone. She had tried to call the company, but the phone had gone unanswered. It seemed like her dream had vanished in a single morning. She walked through the streets, carrying her documents in a thin folder, thinking of what could have been. The city felt different now. The same road she had walked a few days ago, excited and hopeful, now seemed harsh and unforgiving. She saw people in suits rushing past, young professionals with briefcases and confident steps. She wondered if they ever felt this kind of pressure, this kind of fear that every decision could change everything. At home, the air was quiet. Her mother had been waiting for her, worry written on her face. Her younger brother sat quietly, pretending to read, but glancing up every few minutes to see if she was okay. She sat down slowly at the small kitchen table, her head resting in her hands. "Did the interview go well?" her mother asked gently. She shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. The lump in her throat made it hard to answer. She could feel her mother's disappointment, though there was no anger in her voice. She knew her mother understood, in her own way, that sometimes life demanded choices that were bigger than ambition. Her younger brother finally spoke. "You did the right thing, didn't you?" he asked softly. She looked at him, her eyes filling with tears. He was so young, yet he could see what mattered. "I hope so," she whispered. "I hope I made the right choice." She tried to go about her days as usual, but nothing felt normal. She applied to other jobs, sending resumes to companies she barely knew, answering interviews she barely prepared for. Each time she faced rejection, she felt the weight of that morning even more. If only she hadn't stopped for the girl, she thought. Maybe then things would have been different. But then she reminded herself of the child, the small hand she had held, the frightened eyes that had looked at her for safety. She could not regret it. That feeling of responsibility, the choice to help, stayed with her even as doors closed in her face. She started volunteering at a local community center, helping children who were lost or struggling. It gave her comfort. She realized that even if her own dreams were delayed, she could still make a difference in someone else's life. Helping those children, even in small ways, reminded her of that morning and of the girl whose face she could not forget. Yet, life was hard. Money was always tight. Her mother worked long hours cleaning offices, and her younger brother needed school supplies she could barely afford. Every day was a struggle, and she worried constantly that missing the interview had set them back even more. One evening, she was walking home after another long day when she saw the familiar streets of the area where she had found the lost girl. She stopped and looked around, wondering if the girl had found her parents safely. The thought filled her with both hope and anxiety. She wanted to see the child again, to know that everything had turned out okay. But she also feared that nothing would be the same if she reached out. Days turned into weeks. She heard nothing from the company she had missed the interview with, and slowly, she started to feel the weight of despair. Each rejection letter felt heavier than the last. She began questioning her choices, wondering if kindness always came at a price. Her mother noticed a change. "You have been quiet," she said one night, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Don't let disappointment steal your heart. You helped someone. That is something no one can take from you." Her words were comforting, yet they couldn't erase the feeling of loss. She nodded, trying to believe them. One rainy afternoon, she was returning home from another temporary job. She had found cleaning tables at a small cafe. The streets were empty, the rain making everything look gray and blurry. She kept her head down, trying not to slip on the wet pavement, when she saw a small crowd gathered near a corner shop. Curious, she approached, noticing a group of children standing around a woman who was crying softly. The woman looked helpless, unsure what to do. It reminded her of that morning when she had found the lost girl. Her heart ached, and she felt an impulse to help. But the rain was heavy, and she had an umbrella, so she stayed at a distance, watching. A memory flashed through her mind. The small hand she had held, the tear-streaked face, the fear and trust in the girl's eyes. She realized how fragile life could be, how quickly everything could change. That morning had taught her something no interview or rejection ever could. It had taught her about courage, responsibility, and the strength of kindness. She continued walking home, her thoughts heavy but reflective. Life was not just about chasing success. It was about moments, about decisions that defined who you were inside. She realized that even though she had missed her opportunity, she had gained something far more valuable. She had the knowledge that she could act when it mattered most, even if it meant losing something important to herself. Back at home, she sat quietly at the table, looking at her younger brother's drawings scattered across the table. His little hand had drawn a picture of a sun and a house, smiling figures, a simple world full of hope. She smiled faintly, realizing that small acts of care could ripple through lives in ways she could not yet see. She thought of the lost girl, She wondered what the girl was doing now, if she was safe, if she was smiling. The uncertainty was heavy, but it also carried a quiet hope. Maybe someday their paths would cross again. Maybe the girl would remember her. Even though the days were hard, she kept moving forward. She continued applying for jobs, working small gigs, volunteering at the community center, and caring for her family. She learned patience, resilience, and humility. She learned to accept that life did not always reward you immediately for doing the right thing. But she also learned that the right thing mattered more than any immediate reward. That morning, when she had chosen to help the lost girl, instead of running toward her own dreams, had planted a seed. She did not know it yet, but it would grow into something that would change her life in ways she could never imagine. She found herself thinking differently about the world. She noticed people more, their struggles, their fears, and their small victories. She learned to listen with patience, to offer help even when it was inconvenient. She understood the quiet power of kindness, how to turn despair into hope, fear into courage, and strangers into connections. Even as rejection letters piled up and the reality of her financial struggles weighed on her, she felt a subtle strength inside her, a quiet confidence that came not from luck or skill, but from her own choices. She had chosen to act when it mattered most, and that gave her a sense of purpose that no job could ever give. Nights were the hardest. She lay awake in her small room, listening to the distant hum of the city, replaying that morning over and over. She imagined what would have happened if she had walked past the girl, if she had chosen the interview over the child. The thought made her stomach turn. She knew in her heart that she had done the right thing. Weeks passed, and life continued. She continued to apply for jobs, face rejection, and work small gigs. Her life was a routine of struggle and hope, disappointment and courage. Yet, even in the darkest moments, the memory of the small girl held her steady. She started keeping a small journal. Each day, she wrote down moments of kindness she had seen or experienced, small victories, and things she was grateful for. It became a way to remind herself that even when life was unfair, there was still good in the world, and she was part of it. Her family noticed a change, too. They saw her becoming more patient, more empathetic, more determined. They saw that she had grown in ways that went beyond the job she had missed. They felt proud, though she often doubted herself. And then, one ordinary afternoon, she received a message that would shake everything she thought she knew. It was from someone who had found her somehow, someone who remembered that morning she had held a small girl's hand. The message was simple, but it carried weight. I want to meet you. You helped someone very important. Can we talk? Her heart skipped a beat. She read the message again and again. She had no idea who it was or what it meant, but instinctively, she knew this was connected to the lost girl. A mix of fear, excitement, and disbelief filled her. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of hope. She realized that life had a strange way of circling back, that sometimes choices made with kindness could lead to unexpected doors opening. She did not know what would happen next, but she knew she had acted with courage when it mattered most. And that courage, she realized, was a gift no one could ever take from her, no matter how many interviews she missed, no matter how many doors it closed. She held the message close and smiled faintly, whispering to herself, maybe everything is about to change. That evening, she sat by the window, looking at the fading sun and feeling a strange calm. Life was uncertain, but she understood something now that she had not before. Sometimes, the right choice was not the easy one, and sometimes, missing one opportunity could lead to an even greater one. She did not know it yet, but her life was about to take a turn that would change everything, because that small lost girl, who had entered her life for just a few minutes, had left a mark that would ripple through her future in ways she could never imagine. And even as she prepared for the next day, she felt a quiet strength growing inside her, a strength born not from luck, not from skill, but from a single act of courage that had shown her the power of kindness. The days passed slowly, but she felt a strange anticipation growing inside her. The message she had received weeks ago stayed on her mind. She could not stop thinking about it. Who had sent it? What did it mean? Could it really be about the lost girl she had helped that morning? She tried to continue her daily routine, but every sound of a child's laughter, every glimpse of someone walking alone, reminded her of that day. She had tried to move on, applying for jobs, working small gigs, helping at the community center, but her mind kept returning to the lost girl. She had imagined her safe at home, but she could not shake the feeling that their story was not over yet. Finally, the day came when she could no longer ignore the message. She took a deep breath, checked her small purse to make sure she had her ID and phone, and walked to the address given in the message. It was in a part of the city she did not know well, an area full of tall buildings and busy streets. She felt nervous, but a small hope kept her moving forward. As she approached the building, her heart began to race. She stopped at the entrance, looking up at the glass doors and shiny exterior. Everything about the place seemed so different from her small apartment and the busy streets she walked every day. It felt like stepping into another world. She hesitated for a moment, her hand on the door handle. Then she remembered the girl, the frightened little hand she had held, and the courage she had felt that morning. That courage gave her strength now. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The lobby was large and bright, filled with polished floors and soft music. A receptionist looked up at her as she entered. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked politely. She showed the message on her phone. I'm here to see someone. "I was told to come here," she said softly, trying to steady her voice. The receptionist nodded and made a quick call. A few minutes later, a man in a suit appeared. He had a calm but serious expression, and his eyes held a warmth that immediately made her feel more comfortable. "You must be the young woman who helped my daughter," he said. His voice was gentle, but there was a weight behind it, as if he had been searching for her for a long time. She blinked, surprised. "You know about the girl?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "Yes. That day we were frantic. My daughter had wandered away, and we could not find her anywhere. Then we learned that someone had helped her. That someone was you." Her heart skipped a beat. She had never imagined that her simple act of helping a lost child would lead to this moment. She felt a mixture of relief, pride, and disbelief. The man smiled gently. "Please come with me. We should talk somewhere more comfortable." She followed him through a series of glass doors into a quiet office. The room was large and neatly arranged, with soft light coming through tall windows. She took a seat, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to calm herself. After a moment, the man spoke again. "I cannot tell you how grateful I am. That day could have been a disaster. We had searched everywhere, and then we heard about you. You acted when no one else did. You showed kindness when it mattered most." She shook her head. I was just trying to help. I didn't think it would matter that much." He smiled, but his eyes were serious. "It mattered more than you realize. My daughter was scared, lost, and vulnerable. You gave her safety, comfort, and hope. That is something I can never forget." Her mind raced. She had expected gratitude, maybe a small reward, but this felt different. It was not about money or recognition. It was about the impact she had made with a single choice. Then she heard a soft voice behind the man. She turned, and there she was, the lost girl, standing nervously by the door. She had grown slightly, but she was the same small child with wide, trusting eyes. The girl ran to her and hugged her tightly. For a moment, the woman felt tears streaming down her face. She held the girl gently, feeling the trust and fear from that morning melt away. "You saved me," the girl whispered softly. She smiled, her heart full. "I just wanted to make sure you were safe," she said. The girl pulled back slightly and looked at the man, then back at her. "Mama and Papa were so worried," she said, her voice trembling. The man nodded. "Yes, and you, too, were worried. We have been searching for you ever since. Your actions that day made a difference we cannot measure." She felt a lump in her throat. She had not expected this. She had missed her interview, worried about her family, struggled through weeks of small jobs, and yet here she was, face to face with someone whose life she had touched in a profound way. He continued, "I have watched your story. I know you have been working hard, trying to make ends meet, applying for jobs, and yet you have not asked for anything in return. That shows character. That shows integrity." She shook her head, unsure what to say. She had never thought of herself as someone important or special. She had only acted because it was the right thing to do. The man smiled warmly. Sometimes, the right things we do are more powerful than any career opportunity. Sometimes, they open doors we cannot even imagine. She looked at the girl, who smiled shyly. The trust in those eyes reminded her of why she had acted that morning, why she had chosen to stay and help. She realized that her choice had not been a mistake. It had been a turning point. He leaned forward slightly. I want to offer you an opportunity, not because of the interview you missed, but because of the person you are. I want you to work with us, to help make a difference in people's lives. Your kindness, patience, and courage are rare. They cannot be taught. They can only be found in people like you. Her eyes widened. She did not know what to say. She had dreamed of jobs, interviews, salaries, promotions, but this felt different. This was not about money or status. This was about trust, responsibility, and making a real impact. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't need to say anything yet, he replied. Take your time. But know this. That day, when you chose to help, you changed the course of not only my daughter's life, but also your own. She felt a warmth spreading in her chest, a mixture of relief, pride, and hope. She realized that every hardship she had faced since that morning, the missed interview, the small jobs, the uncertainty, had led her to this moment. The girl tugged at her hand again. Will you play with me? She asked softly. She laughed quietly, a sound that felt like it had been trapped inside her for weeks. Of course, she said, kneeling down to the girl's level. They began talking and laughing quietly, sharing stories, their bond growing stronger with every moment. The man watched them silently, a satisfied smile on his face. He knew that trust, kindness, and courage could not be measured in money or status. He had seen them in this woman, and he knew she would bring more than just skills to his organization. She would bring heart. She felt something shift inside her. All the stress, fear, and worry she had carried for weeks seemed lighter now. She realized that life was not just about chasing opportunities. It was also about creating them, about being the kind of person who could make a difference when it mattered most. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace. She knew that even though the path had been difficult, even though she had missed her interview, she had done something meaningful. She had helped a child, shown compassion, and acted with courage. And now, that choice was coming back to her in ways she could never have imagined. The man finally spoke again. This is just a beginning. I want you to think about your future, about the impact you want to make. You have already proven that you have what it takes. She nodded slowly, feeling the weight of his words. She realized that life had a strange way of rewarding courage and kindness, even when it seemed like the world was against you. As she left the office that evening, holding the little girl's hand and feeling the warmth of the man's words in her heart, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. She had stepped into a world she had never imagined, one where her choices mattered, where her courage was recognized, and where she could make a real difference. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope, pure, unshakable hope. She realized that sometimes the right thing was not easy, not convenient, but it could change everything. And in that moment, walking beside the girl she had saved, she understood that her life was about to begin a new chapter, one filled with possibilities she had never dreamed of, all because she had chosen kindness over fear. The days after that meeting felt surreal. She could hardly believe what had happened. One moment, she was walking home, worried about bills and missed opportunities. The next, she was meeting a man she barely knew, the father of the little girl she had helped, and he had offered her a chance she never imagined. Her mind was spinning with questions. Why her? How had he even found her? Could this really be real? She went back to her small room that night, her hands trembling as she sat on the edge of her bed. She opened the notebook she had started after that morning with the lost girl. In it, she wrote about her days, her worries, and her dreams. Now, she had to write something new, something bigger. The next morning, she received a call from the man's office. They wanted her to come in for an orientation. It was not a regular job interview. It was a real opportunity. Her heart beat fast, a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never been in a place like this before, surrounded by people in suits, working in offices with polished floors and bright lights. She felt out of place at first, but she reminded herself of the courage she had found that morning with the lost girl. Her first days at the office were overwhelming. She had to learn new skills, adapt to a fast-paced environment, and navigate a world so different from her own. But she did it slowly, step by step. She asked questions, observed closely, and worked hard, always remembering why she had been given this chance. The man who had found her that day checked on her often, not to micromanage, but to guide her gently, showing her that he trusted her. It was during one of those check-ins that she learned the truth about the little girl's identity. The man told her carefully, without making it sound like a test. He explained that his daughter had wandered away during a large public event. That day, their security team had failed, and the girl had disappeared for several hours. Panic had set in immediately, and they had searched the city endlessly. Then came the moment she had unknowingly been part of. She had found the girl, calmed her down, and kept her safe until they could be contacted. The man's voice softened as he spoke. If it weren't for you, I don't know what could have happened. That day, you were the most important person in our lives. She felt her chest tighten. She had acted without thinking of recognition, without thinking of reward. And yet, here she was, being told that her simple act had been life-changing. Days turned into weeks. She started to settle into her new role, slowly gaining confidence. She worked with children, helping design programs and activities to ensure safety and support. She saw her influence grow, but she never forgot the first child she had helped, the little girl who had changed her life. One afternoon, the little girl ran up to her in the office courtyard, her small hands full of drawings. "Look," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "I made these for you." She smiled, kneeling down to look at the pictures. They were simple, yet full of warmth. Smiling figures, colorful houses, suns shining bright. Drawings that reflected the innocence and trust of a child who had once been terrified and alone. "These are beautiful," she said softly, feeling a lump in her throat. "Thank you." The girl hugged her again, and for a moment, everything else faded. All the worries, the struggles, the fear of failure, they seemed distant now. She realized that this small life she had touched had become a part of her own. Her work continued to grow. She was involved in programs that helped children in distress, those who were lost, scared, or neglected. She knew firsthand how much a simple act of kindness could mean. And with every success, every child helped, she felt her confidence strengthen. She realized that the courage to act when it mattered most was something rare, and it had led her to this life. One evening, she sat at her desk, looking at the notes she had made that day. She reflected on the journey that brought her here, the missed interview, the small jobs, the worries, the doubts. Each challenge had shaped her, but none of them mattered as much as the decision she had made to help that lost girl. The man who had found her noticed her quiet reflection. "You're thinking about that day, aren't you?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I keep thinking about how small choices can change everything. I never imagined that helping her could lead to this. It feels unbelievable." He smiled. "Sometimes, the smallest acts are the most powerful. They show who we really are. You acted from the heart, and that made all the difference. Life has a way of recognizing that." She looked at him, unsure how to respond. Words felt inadequate. She had dreamed of opportunities before, but this was different. This was about trust, integrity, and the impact she could have on others. Over the next few weeks, she met with the girl's father often. He shared stories of the girl's life, her school, her routines, and her little quirks. She began to understand how deeply he valued safety, trust, and responsibility, and she realized that these were values she already carried within her. The connection between them was built on more than gratitude. It was a recognition of character, of integrity, of courage. One day, the father invited her to a special event. It was a gathering to celebrate children who had overcome challenges, those who had been supported through difficult times. He wanted her to speak, to share her story, to inspire others. She was nervous. Speaking in front of people had never been easy for her. But as she looked at the little girl, who beamed at her from the front row, she felt a courage she hadn't known before. She stepped up the stage, her voice steady as she began to speak. She told them about the day she had found a lost girl on a busy street. She described the fear, the worry, and the decision to help. She spoke about how small acts could have big impacts, and how courage and kindness could change lives. When she finished, the audience applauded. Some were moved to tears, others smiled warmly, but everyone understood the message. That one person's choice could make a difference. After the event, the father pulled her aside. "You see," he said quietly, "your actions inspire more than you know. That day, you could have walked away, but you didn't. You chose to act, and now, your influence is far greater than you imagined." She felt tears fill her eyes. She had learned so much over the past weeks, not just about opportunity, but about herself. She realized that life could be unpredictable, that setbacks could turn into blessings, and that kindness was always noticed, even if it seemed invisible at first. Back at home that evening, she sat quietly with her mother and younger brother. She shared some of her experiences, careful not to overwhelm them with the details of the office or the events she had attended. But she shared enough to show them that life could change in unexpected ways, that courage and kindness mattered more than any immediate success. Her mother smiled, her eyes soft with pride. "I always knew you were special," she said. "But seeing you live your values, it's more than I ever imagined." Her younger brother nodded, his admiration clear. "You really saved her. And now, look at everything that's happening. I think you've done something amazing." She smiled faintly, feeling a warmth that went deeper than any accomplishment or reward. She realized that her life had changed not because she had been chosen for a job or given opportunity, but because she had acted when it mattered most, when no one else would. As she lay in bed that night, reflecting on the past weeks, she felt a sense of peace. She knew that life would continue to challenge her, that there would be struggles, obstacles, and moments of doubt. But she also knew something else, that courage, kindness, and integrity would guide her, that they would create opportunities she could never have imagined. The little girl's hand, held that morning, had led her here. The simple act of helping someone in need had created a ripple, touching lives, opening doors, and shaping her future. She closed her eyes and whispered softly to herself, "I will never forget that morning. I will never forget why I acted, and I will carry it with me always." In the quiet of her small room, surrounded by the city's distant hum, she felt a quiet confidence growing. She knew that the next chapter of her life was only beginning, that more challenges, more opportunities, and more moments of courage awaited. And she also knew that she was ready, because she had already proven to herself that the right choice, no matter how difficult, could change everything. And somewhere far away, the little girl slept peacefully, safe and loved, unaware that her small hand had led a young woman to a life she never thought possible. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, she felt she was exactly where she was meant to be, ready to face whatever came next. The days that followed felt like a dream, but in the best possible way. She had a real job now, one that allowed her to make a difference, one that let her help children in need, just like the little girl she had once found lost on a busy street. Each day brought new challenges, but also new rewards. She felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. She arrived at the office early, as always, her bag in hand and a quiet determination in her step. The little girl often came with her father, sometimes walking into the office, sometimes staying in a safe play area. Every time she saw her, she felt a wave of emotion, gratitude, joy, an unspoken bond that connected them forever. One morning, the man who had given her this opportunity called her into his office. He had a serious expression, but she could see the kindness behind it. "I wanted to talk to you about something important," he said. "You've done remarkable work these past months. You've shown dedication, compassion, and a level of understanding that is rare. It is clear that your actions are guided not by ambition alone, but by the right values. I want to offer you something more permanent, a position where you can grow, make decisions, and influence our programs on a larger scale." Her heart skipped a beat. She had dreamed of stability, of security, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. She wanted to speak, but no words came immediately. She nodded, feeling tears prick the corners of her eyes. I would be honored," she finally said, her voice shaking slightly. He smiled, a warmth in his eyes that she would never forget. "Good. You've earned it, not just because of your skills, but because of your heart. that is far more valuable than anything else. She left the office that day with a lightness she hadn't felt in years. Walking through the streets, she felt as if the city itself had changed. Everything seemed brighter, softer, filled with possibilities. She thought about her family, her mother and younger brother, and how proud they would be when they heard the news. She wanted to run home immediately to share the joy and relief with them. At home, she shared the news. Her mother's eyes filled with tears as she embraced her. "I knew it," she said softly. "I always knew you would be rewarded for your goodness." Her younger brother jumped up and down, cheering. "You did it! You really did it!" She laughed, feeling the tension of months of struggle melt away. Yet, amidst the joy, she remembered the little girl who had started it all. She realized how intertwined their lives had become, and how much a single choice had changed everything. Weeks passed, and her role in the organization grew. She was trusted with bigger responsibilities, allowed to plan programs, and even speak with community leaders. Each day brought challenges, but also satisfaction. She knew that the work mattered, that it had real impact, and that the lessons she had learned in the past months would guide her every step. One evening, she received a call from the little girl's father. "I want to invite you to a special dinner," he said. "There is someone I want you to meet, someone who has been watching your journey." Curious, she arrived at their home that evening. It was large, elegant, yet warm. The little girl ran to her immediately, holding her hand tightly. "I've missed you," she said. She laughed, hugging the girl. "I've missed you too," she said. The man led her into a quiet sitting room. "I wanted to introduce you to someone important," he said. "Someone who understands the choices we make and the impact they have." She looked up, surprised, as a kind woman entered. She introduced herself simply, explaining that she had been part of an organization that helped children and families, and that she had followed the young woman's story since the day she had helped the lost girl. "You've inspired us," the woman said softly. "Not just because of your work now, but because of the courage and kindness you showed that day. It is rare to see someone act selflessly when it matters most. You are a model for others to follow." She felt a lump in her throat. She had never imagined that her actions would have such far-reaching effects. She had only tried to do the right thing in the moment, never expecting recognition or reward. The little girl tugged at her hand again. "Do you remember when I was lost?" she asked softly. She nodded. "I remember. And I remember how scared you were, and how brave you became, too." The girl smiled. "I think I was brave because you were brave first." Her heart swelled. The words were simple, but they carried more meaning than anything she had ever heard. She realized that courage and kindness could be contagious, that the right choice could inspire others in ways she could not predict. As dinner progressed, she noticed the warmth and love in the household. The father and daughter shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of affection. She realized how much trust and care had shaped their lives, and how her single act of helping a lost child had become part of their story. She also understood that her own life had changed in ways she never expected. The missed interview, the months of struggle, the small jobs, they had all led her here. She realized that sometimes setbacks are not failures, but stepping stones to something greater. That night, as she walked home, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. She thought about her mother and younger brother, the lessons of perseverance and kindness they had taught her, and the small choices that had guided her path. She realized that life had a way of rewarding courage, integrity, and compassion, even if it took time. The next weeks were filled with new responsibilities, but also new joys. She continued to grow in her role, helping more children, planning programs, and supporting families. She saw the impact of her work firsthand and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. One day, as she walked through the office, she noticed a small note left on her desk. It was from the little girl, simple words written in bright colors. "Thank you for being my hero." She smiled, feeling tears fill her eyes. She realized that her journey was not about titles, money, or recognition. It was about the lives she touched, the trust she earned, and the courage she had found within herself. Months later, she returned to the same street where she had found the lost girl. She walked slowly, taking in the surroundings, remembering the fear and uncertainty of that morning. She paused at the corner, imagining the little girl standing alone, and felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that one small act had created ripples she could never have measured. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was from the father. "We would like you to join us for a special project. It is time to expand the work you've been doing. Your dedication and heart have made all the difference." She looked at the message, feeling a mixture of excitement and humility. She realized that life had come full circle. The lost girl had changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. And now, she had the chance to create change for others, to give hope, safety, and guidance to children who needed it most. She thought about the months of struggle, the missed interview, the moments of doubt, and the sleepless nights. Each challenge had shaped her. Each choice had led her here. And she understood something profound. Sometimes, doing the right thing, even when it is hard, leads to outcomes beyond imagination. That evening, she returned home to her mother and younger brother. She shared the news, and they celebrated quietly together. They did not need grand parties or fanfare. The joy in their eyes, the warmth of their embrace, and the knowledge that life was changing for the better was enough. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had discovered her strength, her courage, and her ability to make a difference. She had learned that life's greatest rewards often come from selflessness, integrity, and kindness. And she had seen firsthand how one act, one choice, could ripple through lives, creating hope and change in ways unimaginable. As she prepared for bed that night, she thought of the little girl, safe and happy, and of the father who had trusted her. She felt a quiet pride in herself, not for the rewards or recognition, but for the courage she had found in a single moment of decision. She whispered softly to herself, "I will never forget that morning. I will never forget why I acted, and I will carry it with me always." The city outside was quiet, the streets bathed in soft moonlight. She knew that life would continue to challenge her, that there would be obstacles, struggles, and moments of doubt. But she also knew something stronger, that courage, kindness, and integrity would guide her, and that they could create opportunities, change lives, and inspire others. And somewhere far away, the little girl slept peacefully, dreaming of bright suns and happy days, unaware that her small hand had led a young woman to a life of purpose, hope, and fulfillment. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, she felt she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had chosen kindness over fear, courage over convenience, and the world had opened its doors to her. She closed her eyes, feeling the quiet strength within her, knowing that her life had changed forever, and that the story of that morning, the lost girl, the hand she had held, the courage she had found, would guide her always, lighting the path of the lives she would touch next. And in that quiet, peaceful moment, she understood something she had always hoped for but never believed could happen. Sometimes, the right choice at the right moment can change not only your life, but the world around you.